Hey there! Welcome to Trapping the Time. I'm Pablo, and today I'm going to introduce you to a watch that occupied a very important place among my most desired ones. I don't know if I can say as much as a grail, but it's a watch that I've been dreaming about since day one. It is the Seiko SPB151, a reproduction of the epic 6105-8110 that appeared in 1968. It is the Seiko Captain Willard. They had access to it in the military commissaries, in the American bases, and many chose it because it was resistant, reliable, very easy to read, and also allowed an investment up to 150 meters, not so common at that time. This fact was immortalized in Francis Ford Coppola's epic film, Apocalypse Now, where the protagonist, Captain Willard, played by Martin Sheen, wore this watch. Hence, many fans know him as the Willard, others as Apo. I call him Capt. Willard. I saw that movie when it was released and I left the theater in shock. I was quite young and still had a lot of rereading to do, which I only found over the years. And the review of that masterpiece, along with The Godfather, Matrix, and Blade Runner, the films I have seen more times. My favorite movies. And maybe that explains my enthusiasm for this watch. Soon after I started with the channel, and on your recommendation through the comments, I got a Steel Dive, which is the Chinese copy. 2 years later, I finally get to put the original in my box. Wow, one of the versions, the cheapest one. There are others, for example one they released to celebrate the 80th anniversary of Naomi Uemura, Japanese adventurer who used this watch in his expeditions. That limited edition is superior in size, equips a better caliber, works at and is also much higher in price as it exceeds 3,000 euros. It is an analog watch with 3 hands and date. Inside it beats at 21,600 alternating hours, the caliber 6R35, which has 72 hours of power reserve, allows automatic or manual winding, and has a second stop. To see how tight it gets, we're going to run it through the chrono comparator. And as you can see, this is not so frequent. It varies a lot between positions, 2 in negative and 2 in positive. But the final figure after averaging is +0 and 25 seconds a day. Its measures are 42 with 5 millimeters in diameter, 45 with 6 millimeters long between posts. But these are lengthened up to 49 with 6 if we consider the final link that is male. It is 13 and 8 millimeters high or thick, and the width between handles is 20 millimeters. It weighs 180 grams with full bracelet, and its official PVP is 1,450 euros. But if you have patience, it is not so difficult to get it around 1,000 euros. And my first question is where to place this watch. At the top of the basic range of Seiko, or at the bottom of the top range. Above it has the Marine Master and some re-editions of this same model, or the 62 more that cost more than 3,000 euros, and even above the Seiko LX, that already go to 6,000–7,000. So I would opt for the first, that this is the best of its basic range. But this is an opinion, and as everyone has their own, I would like to know yours. In what segment would you place this watch? The dial is not black, but dark gray. That is well appreciated by contrast with the bezel, although that may be by sporting a completely nuanced finish that swallows the light. Something I appreciate. One of the things I was very clear about was that my Captain Willard had to be this color, which is how I associate it with the original. Well, the one I saw in the movie. I don't know if in Vietnam in the 70s you could buy it in blue, in white, in green, in any of the colors available now. Any of the ones that are available now. Either way, in my eyes, to give it that tactical watch look of a tool of war. Although I'm not sure that's what it was designed for. For me, it has to be black. Recall that historically, this is the second among Seiko's 150-meter divers. The first was the 62 Plus, but this one provided that very characteristic case shape, similar to a turtle shell that later gave rise to other well-known models of the brand. Perhaps the most remarkable feature of this design is the growth of the case on the lower right side to protect a crown located at 4 o'clock. To protect a crown located at 4 o'clock. Something that later became the hallmark of Seiko. Sumo, Marine Master, Monster, Tuna, etc., etc. I would say that except for the 62 Plus reissues or the Samurai, almost all the divers in the Seiko catalog here in Spain, the automatics, have the crown at 4 o'clock. The dial is perimetered by the minute track, painted bars of light gray, metallic, which when illuminated shine brighter than usual. The hour indexes are applied, sport a steel-colored metallic profile, and are almost completely filled with the epic Lume Brighte. One of the best luminous pastes on the market, and to prove it, we are going to put it next to the Mito Ocean Restart. New benchmark in this section, for its great brightness and durability. And the truth is that I am looking forward to see the recording. But I would bet that there is not going to be that much difference. The markers are 3 shapes, slightly trapezoidal. They are not perfect squares or rectangles, but the base is a tiny bit wider, although to appreciate that you have to look very closely. The one at 12 o'clock is 2 indices joined together to form a trapezoid with a point facing south. At 3 o'clock they have eliminated it to be faithful to the original, I guess. The truth is that it maintains the symmetry better because the dater covers practically the same space as the corresponding index. The price to pay is that in that position there is no lumen, which is something mandatory in a pro diver. Although if I tell you the truth, I don't care exactly the same. Below the 12 o'clock, I am not sure if the brand name is applied or painted. Because of the matte finish of the dial, there are no shadows, and the naked eye does not appreciate volume. Above 6 o'clock, on 3 lines, we first see the Prospex logo, then automatic and finally divers 200 meters, which tells us that this watch is ISO certified for divers. All of them in silver color with satin finish. We come to the hands, minute and hour hands with baton-shaped, slightly pointed, counterbalanced, show 2 facets that are interrupted in the area where they incorporate the luminous paste. The trotter is a traffic light with a red dot and lumen at the tip. That vermilion drop is the only splash of color we'll see on a watch, which is the only one that goes outside the grayscale. And if you look at the path of the second hand, which is very long and passes over the hour markers, being these painted with Lume Bright, the same color as the tip of the needle. You might not see very well when you are in that traffic, and that's why the red traffic light locates you instantly. I don't think they put it there for color, but for practical reasons. The truth is that this watch is an exercise in minimalist design in Japanese version. Everything is subordinated to functionality. Nothing wants to stand out or seek beauty through artifice. And I think that's why he is so beautiful, because he finds simple but effective solutions full of personality. He doesn't want to be what he is not. He doesn't want to pretend. But for me, that's where his enormous appeal lies. I don't know what it will feel like to hold a Blancpain or a Rolex in your hand. But life is not what happens to you, but how you live what happens to you. And in this hobby of children with expensive toys, where a watch of 20 euros can be more accurate than one of 20,000, when it is not even necessary to use these devices to know the time. In this world of passionate geeks, everyone has the right to feel as they please. And I suppose this is a poor man's claim, but that's what I think. And abounding in that, in which I have put myself alone, I want to add that, for those whose economy does not allow them to get to this, the day I received my steel dive, the imitation, I felt something very similar. In fact, I could not believe so much watch for that price. The part that is missing, because it is a copy, because it does not have that historical legacy, was given by having cost less than 100 euros, and making that mythical design available to anyone. And the funny thing is that the copies of other more luxurious models, I accept them badly. I find them pretentious and partly misplaced. But this design is the definition of simplicity and effectiveness made watch. And if you cannot have 1,000 euros, I tell you that I have used much my Chinese copy, and I've been more comfortable than a bush with my imitation Captain Willard. It is what it is. I have also done that you can only reproach it for being a copy, but to clarify doubts and see their differences, it will not take long to make a comparison between the two. Now that I also tell you that, if you can, you better go for this one. I don't know if many watches can make you feel like that. You feel that you are wearing on your wrist a part of history, but the real one. Not like the Hamilton Murph, which is a movie story. Actually a Frankenstein created ad hoc for the movie, and may its owners, among whom I hope to find myself one day, forgive me. But this Seiko is not only part of the cinema, and participated in one of the best war movies ever filmed. On top of that, it is part of the history of war, and also of watchmaking. We know how it was, but perhaps we haven't wondered how it could be. How could it be that the proud American soldiers preferred to wear a Japanese watch from the country that had been their enemy only a few years earlier? How much better this Seiko had to be than their endowment watches, or others they could buy in those commissaries: Bulova, Elgin, Benrus, Hamilton, Marathon. And Seiko is a lot of Seiko. It is time to thank all these friends that you see on the screen, and also to our members, for their great support. We leave the link to our Patreon in the description of the video if you want to check all the advantages that our patrons have. Neither the hardening treatment of the steel, nor the machined clasp can be seen in the hand, which are the three things in which it improves it. However, the King Samurai does have a ceramic bezel and costs half the price. Are the Seiko ranges well staggered? There will be as many opinions as fans. And returning to the watch, we come to the crystal. Sapphire with anti-reflective, which is not bad, but far from its Swiss competition. Mito is far superior in this regard. On its outer part has a cut in a straight degree that is opaque if you see it from the side, but from the front it is translucent. And let's go with the bezel that cannot be. It has a painted aluminum insert. I accept that that is part of being as faithful as possible to the original. I don't think there were ceramic bezels in those years. But why is it more expensive than, for example, the SPB187, which does have it, when they share very similar caliber and characteristics? The thing is that I'm moving up a level with Seiko. Seiko Sports GMT, Earth Turtle, Kin Samurai, Sumo. Now this one. And he who lacks one thing lacks the other. And this one that does bring a decent clasp and a caliber with plenty of power reserve. Painted bezel and $1,450. Anyway, whoever understands Seiko, let me know. And I say this after having acknowledged 1,000 times that it is my favorite brand. We see that it shows the division of the time between dots, bars, and Arabic numerals, and instead of the 60, the classic inverted triangle with lumen drop. A classic Seiko configuration, but with the size of the ring and numbers very appropriate, so to speak. Its feel is very nice. It pulls well and anchors in place without moving. It has 120 clicks and is unidirectional. A nice design detail, to preserve the integrity of the paint on the insert, is that the edge of the bezel and crystal are at a higher height, and that will better protect that surface. And that's going to better protect that surface from scratches. The case is... how beautiful. After seeing several Swiss, which are usually a steel billet, you see these sinuous shapes, and it makes you want to touch it as if it were a living being. Knowing the imprint it has had on the Seiko that later came, and knowing that it was designed more than 50 years ago, and that it is still so valid and current, so personal and identifiable, makes me love it everywhere I look. On the left side, it is spectacular. On the right side is sublime with that disruptive growth that, while tough, is also practical like no other. And I also find it beautiful. No one that I know of has ever come up with a better way to protect the crown. And to that you add that I appreciate anything that makes the watch asymmetrical. But I like it best when I see the watch flat and at my eye level. What a beautiful thing. How they have managed to make something as cold as metal almost look organic. I love Seiko cases. There isn't one that hasn't left me in love. What a way to remove volume and weight with elegance. I think Seiko is the best in these. This one is finished in a circular brushing on the top and lugs, but the case band is mirror polished. We see that it has recesses in the lugs that allow an easier change of extensible. The crown is ideal. It pulls immediately, and the feel is very good. It is threaded, and once in place is perfectly flush with that part of the case that protects it. The only regrettable thing is that it is not signed, something I can't explain. I ask myself again the same question. How much do you have to pay for Seiko to sign a crown? And we come to the cover, which as you can see is blind and with the well-known Kanagawa wave in relief and shiny in the center. Around, laser engraved, among other references and legends, that Japan that bothers me. I do not know if it means that it is made in Japan or not. The speed timer we saw recently did say Japan made. Anyway. The bracelet is very good. Solid pieces of steel, the male end link, which seems to lengthen a little the visual perception of the lugs, and the case that for my taste are a little short. It is brush finished on the top and polished on the sides, although it must be said that, once again, it is not the same color as the case. It is also true that you can't match the color if they are brushed in different directions. But it is clearly seen that the bracelet has a tone, more gold. It's not as gray as the case. And the Tissot Gentleman comes to mind now, which for $800 gets you the exact same case and bracelet. Why does Seiko never seem to finish closing the pack on it in that regard? It's something that really gets my attention. I think it's because we forgive them everything. But I also think they should work a little harder. All links are hollow with access to the pins, and the clasp, finally, is mechanized. It has 3 folds and a safety tab. It closes by pressure, and the sides are released by means of these loops. It has 4 holes for micro-adjustment and extensible diving. In short, a clasp that conveys quality and a sense of longevity. But I will also tell you that I don't care because I like this watch with black extensible. I'm going to try a rubber one and a NATO one. And something tells me that one of those is the one that is going to stay on. To make it more true, I don't know if it's true to its history, the movie, or my style. I'm not a big fan of bracelets, because I think they detract from the watch. Besides, a NATO gives me a lot of security. Okay, it's not often that a pin comes loose or breaks. But if I ever lose a watch because of that, I'm going to get a pain in the ass. And once the review is done, it's time to summarize the qualities and defects of this Seiko SPB151. To me, it seems a sublime watch, with so many virtues that any defect is dwarfed in my eyes. But it is not a perfect watch. It could be improved with a higher quality anti-reflective, with a bracelet color more similar to that of the case, and with a ceramic or ceramic bezel. And with a ceramic bezel or not. Well, I'm not sure about the latter. I prefer it to look as close as possible to the original. I don't think it's cheap either. On the contrary, 1,450 euros is a lot of money. But in exchange, you get a historic piece, with a design that marked an era, and that more than 50 years later is still as valid and current as the first day. A movement with 72 hours of power reserve, with excellent chronometry. A very legible dial at any time, excellent lumen. A spectacular case. In short, with this watch you have a piece of Seiko history, of the history of cinema, of the history of war, and it is a Prospex Captain Willard. Who gives more? I admit that the Swiss I've seen lately have made me doubt Seiko. But with this watch in my hand, despite its shortcomings in some materials, or in some finishing details, I feel something special, difficult to define. But that fulfills my expectations at the highest level. I hope someday I can reach the Marine Master 3. Or a Grand Seiko. The dream box is always more than full to overflowing. But in the meantime, I'm the happiest guy in the world with my Cappy Willard. And that's all for today. Thank you very much for seeing us, and especially for staying until the end. Best regards from the team and see you soon. God willing. Bye.